creating our Changemaker show for Serious Country. I always enjoy getting your suggestions on those making change across our primary sector here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as well as I read a lot of different websites and keep an eye on what is going on. And one thing I thought, following on our native tree discussion last week, was a really cool initiative that's come out of Gisborne. Aratu Forests announced a 90-year riparian forestry scheme. This is thanks to the team at ElandNZ, and Aratu Forests is one of New Zealand's 10 largest freehold forest plantations making a difference. They announced that the industry-first 90-year right to plant land management agreement with sustainable land use company ElandNZ New Zealand that has the backing of Gisborne District Council is something that will see riparian native tree plantations and have not only biodiversity benefits but also economic benefits as well. Joining us is the CEO, Hugh Riddiford. Hugh, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise and knowledge in this space. It's hotly contested debate around right tree, right place. And this is, I feel, the right mix of achieving a commercial outcome and an environmental outcome.
Yes, it's not unusual. Because most environmental initiatives don't really have a dollar value, and our mantra, as I've explained, is commercial solutions that have environmental outcomes, and that's our mantra. So we search for a commercial return, and at the same time look for an environmental outcome.
So revegetation of streamside buffers within the Aratu, the privately owned forest estate, in areas that are unsuitable for timber production. What would that look like? And explain how you'll be rolling out these changes.
Well, I mean, it's not so much timber production. It's more like logging and the growing of the radiata trees that needed to be logged within a certain period of time. The trees that we'll be planting, in fact, apart from the odd, what we call selected harvest to keep the vibrancy of the estate intact, there's no requirement to cut anything down. And that's why it was required to have a 90-year right. Now, the 90 years is only limited by the fact that a forest right, I'm going to use an unusual word now, it's called propter pondera. And propter pondera is a right to take, and it's a French word, but it can't be any longer than 99 years under New Zealand law, and that's why there's a limit. But of course, the forest that we're planting will be there forever.
Fantastic. And of course, it's a mix, I understand, of species, manuka, kanuka, and also that lower cover to bring up through those native trees over a period of time, having those incredible environmental benefits of biodiversity, but also too in Gisborne, I mean, turning that tide on the debris on the beaches and the sludge and things like that. It must be, good to be involved with something that will only, meet the community expectations of the East Coast.
Yes, it's the obvious one is the logs on the beaches, and our forest will create a buffer. So when we're planting the larger trees, that's what we have in mind, is to create a buffer, stop the logs ending up on the beach. But equally importantly is the sludge, because the sludge, when you harvest and you're in unstable soil conditions, that soil ends up in the waterway. So there's a double problem there. And the whole point of limiting the capacity for the soil to run into streams is by planting something permanent.
What are the average distances from the edge of the waterways that you are going back from?
There is no average, because it's council that decides, and it's really on a case-by-case basis. And you really have to look at the topography. So for me to get into a figure would be wrong. We are currently working on what that number will be, but in a lot of cases, it's in consultation with the council, who will obviously want to get as far back from the stream as possible, and the owners of the land who want to possibly not go quite as far. So there's a delicate balance there. So I'd rather not make a comment on that just at this point, because we're still working our way through it.
This really is pioneering a new way of sustainable forestry practices, Hugh, and I'm really happy to be able to showcase this here in Ceres Country, because it's super important that we can move as quickly as possible to, have these environmental outcomes achieved faster. The question I have for you is it possible, excuse my ignorance in the forestry world, but to actually go through and take out a buffer of existing, so that could be 10-year-old Pinus radiata, and take that back 10 metres and plant them? Or is it only on the renewal of new forestry blocks?
At this particular point, and this might change, it's just on the post-harvest, if you like. It doesn't involve areas that are already planted, but immature, as we call them, and but it's post-harvest, yeah.
The reason I ask that is because in a pastoral farming system, taking a 5 to 10 to 20 metre buffer out is taking land out of production, and that is to meet the environmental outcomes of the regional council under our national freshwater standards on pastoral farming. Should that not be applied also to forestry's responsibility as well?
That's an interesting point, but it's not necessarily valid, because you think about the retiring of the area around waterways and sheep and beef, for example, and dairy. That has a particular problem, whereas if you've got a planted radiata forest, it's not causing a problem for the waterways while it's still young and growing. It's only post-harvest.
Right.
That's the difference.
Okay. All right. So there is no flow-on water quality issues from established forestry?
No.
Okay.
Well, sorry, I asked that question very quickly. I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. But the commercial solution we spoke about to encourage foresters to go down the idea of native riparian buffer zones is one I really would love to talk to you more about. So with having that manuka and kanuka in there, is there opportunities for aporists and beekeepers to work closely together to have an outcome for the landowner?
Yes, the whole, let's talk about manuka to start with. My great-grandfather would roll in his grave. He thought that I was not only encouraging people to let it regrow, but also plant it as well. But he spent his whole life cutting it down. But here we are, all those years later. And it's interesting, the honey that comes out of manuka. I remember talking to a farmer that we have a joint venture with around Lake Taupō, and he said that they knew many, many years ago that manuka had medical properties and medical curing properties. And it was quite widely known. In fact, if you Google Maori and manuka, you'll find that they had knowledge hundreds of years ago that manuka had special medical properties. Now, for some reason, that information got lost in the time, and it's only in the last 10 to 12 years that the particular properties have come to the fore and started to have quite a lot of value. It's interesting enough, I am drifting along a little bit, going on too much these times. Manuka in the old days, it couldn't be sold. Nobody wanted to buy it because it was dark and a bit strong. Everybody wanted the white clothes stuff. And it was only in recent times that they realised that it had these medical properties, and it came into sort of being, if you like. Now, also the measures, and so the apiarist and the apiculture, value of honey, for example, has gone up enormously since I've been involved, which is about 12 years now. And it's only just recently that they have come on in its own a recognised international medical product, both surgical and cosmetics as well.
I love the work that you're doing here, Hugh. You know, recognising how to improve economic returns as well as helping farmers diversify their operations and be more sustainable at the same time. Check out ElandNZ.com and the work that they are doing with farmers, forestries, Māori entities to work on apiculture forestry, permanent forestry, riparian forestry. It's really good stuff. Thank you so much, Hugh Riddiford, the CEO there, providing some more information around the 90-year scheme of riparian forestry that is happening, working in conjunction with the Gisborne District Council.